Today is September 17th, 2024. I'm a little behind schedule. We're still in the third fiscal quarter. I was supposed to drop a video in July, but due to living while building my legacy, things got pushed back a little bit. But the remainder of these videos, uh, I'm going to be citing to a lot of literature that has helped me get to where I am today. So, of course, we're at step 13, which consists of hiring employees. But before we get into that, this video and probably the next video, I'm going to be citing to literature that got me here. Uh, you'll hear me say over and over again on the remainder of these videos that business is an intellectual sport. And I got that quote from Keith Cunningham, who happens to be my master teacher and one of the idols and leaders that I'm going to be saluting tonight. So if you've been following this channel, you've been following these videos, you understand how City Boys R Us was created. It was created strictly off operating cash. There's only three ways in order to go into business. You can either get a loan from a bank, you can crowdfund, which means get money from family, friends, or complete strangers to help you on your business venture, or you can do the hardest one, which is the most powerful one, which is build it off operating cash, i.e. cash flow. So what I want to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm going to walk it like I talk it and basically share with people how I got here. Again, if you've seen my videos, you're familiar with the process, but I got to give a big salute out to Dave Ramsey. Looking back, how did I get to a place where I'm able to hire employees, make payroll, run my own payroll? How did I get here? My ground floor of my financial education is Dave Ramsey and his financial peace class, 7 baby steps. I've been debt free since August 2nd, 2010 on the personal side and the business side. And I can say now, I'm working on I'm over 14 years living debt free and operating a debt free business. And financial peace means so much more today than it did working to get back to zero on my balance sheet. If I began to tell y'all some of the things that I've been able to do with having money, i.e., having wealth, it will probably blow your mind. I'm actually building a legacy while still living. So Dave Ramsey, I got to salute you. One of his favorite slogans is live like no one else, so later you can give like no one else. And I'm a living example of that. So got to shout out Dave Ramsey. Now, a lot of these people that are my idols and role models, they're disciples of Dave Ramsey. So I'm going to go to my next person on my financial journey, which is going to be this gentleman right here. This gentleman is David Bosch. So while I was learning about finances through my Dave Ramsey class, Dave Ramsey would always refer to David Bosch. David Bosch is known to me personally with the latte factor. So the video where you hear me saying, pay yourself 1 hour a day and then build it up to where you're putting your whole check up. If you're trying to go into business, that's the way that I did it. David Bosch came up with that theory. So I want to salute David Bosch for presenting the information for those that are willing to first learn it and then practice it. That's what's going to separate business owners as we continue to walk on this channel. Remember, 8 out of 10 people talk it, they don't walk it. Only 2 out of 10 people walk it and talk it. And so that's why only 20% of people are entrepreneurs and business owners. No disrespect, but it takes intellect and financial IQ in order to live a certain way. It's not for everybody. The next person I want to salute, all these people are very, very dear to me because there's a lot of experiences that have come along the way. Robert Kiyosaki, I was 30 years old and I knew nothing about financial statements, had great career jobs, great paying jobs. In my 20s, I was pulling down between 50 and 75,000, right? But I had nothing to show for it, right? And so my mind started recalibrating itself as I came, by the time I got to 30, and a friend of mine bought me that book. And that's the worst mistake that he could have ever did, because I now can say too, you give back. Once you get in a position where you can give back, I've given people financial classes, suggested, paid for out my pocket. It's on them what they do with it. But the person who bought my book, you got the right one to book. I'm cut from a cloth where I don't need you to hold my hand. All you got to do is give me the information. I'll do my own homework. I don't need you babysitting. So I got to salute Robert Kiyosaki, all of his literature. We're going to get into one of his books today as well. And I want to go to my next idol, which is this gentleman here who I was introduced through Dave Ramsey as well. This is Zig Ziglar. Zig Ziglar is my master sales teacher. The last job that I had, I know on my website, I talk about being laid off from Panasonic, but the other part of that story is I had one more job after Panasonic, and that job was I ran the technical operations on the Breeze project. So those that live in Atlanta, Georgia, you've ever rode the MARTA system, you can remember before the Breeze system, you had the turnstiles, we had to put the coins in it. That was old technology, more electromechanical technology. When the Breeze system came in, after the setup and everything was installed in, I was the one running that operation. And specifically, I was drilling down on the South line because that's the busiest line on the MARTA system, from Garnett Station all the way down to the airport. You got a lot of people moving. So those Breeze machines at those MARTA stations, those Breeze gates, and then the ride stores at the airport, 5 Points and Lindbergh Station. I was responsible for that whole technical operation. And there's always freedom as a technician, right? There's more downtime than actual work time because we get paid for what we know, not how much we do. But I listened to Zig Ziglar religiously on iTunes, as well as Dave Ramsey and some other people that I'm going to be sharing. But salute to Zig Ziglar. That's going to take me to my next idol and mentor along this journey to get to a place where I can go from self-employed to a small business owner, which means hiring people and making payroll. Part of that 20%. Earl Nightingale. Earl Nightingale, I got introduced through Dave Ramsey as well. Earl Nightingale, if you've never heard of him, go to YouTube and put in The Strangest Secret. And I'm going to give you some gems from that video. There's two things that are the strangest secret when it comes to human beings: conformity, lack of goal setting. So if you want to be an owner, you want to really have the last say so on whatever it is that's going on in your world, you cannot conform and you have to have goals. I learned that from Earl Nightingale. So salute to you, Earl Nightingale. The next person on my list as we move through, this person I learned about from Dave Ramsey as well. And this person is my master marketer. And this gentleman is Seth Godin. If you've never heard of Seth Godin, you can download him on iTunes. You can go to YouTube, or you can go to Dave Ramsey's channel, and you can find the bills where Dave Ramsey and Seth Godin are building together about marketing and advertising. He's my master teacher. So I'm sharing this information because somebody's going to be out there that wants to do it. They want to go into business. They don't want to borrow money. They don't want to be liable to anybody. They want to go out there and get it on their own. I'm just passing the gems on how I got to where I am today, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. The next on my list of idols and mentors, this probably is, if you're a business owner and you don't have this book in your library, number one, you slipping, and number two, you're probably are you really a business owner? Because to really be a business owner, that means that you don't answer anybody. Everybody works for you. Even if you contract with people, you're partnering with them. You don't work for them. 8 out of 10 people have no idea what that reality is like. I like to use a term called dumbing myself down. I'm going to cite to some literature that's going to back up what I'm about to say. Let's do the math on it. If only 20% of people are business owners and 80% of people are employees, then if business is an intellectual sport, that means that most people you're going to be around, they have no clue of the intellect that it takes to run something, right? And they have no clue of the financial intelligence that's needed in order to run something and maintain something. So a lot of times you're going to be in situations where I like to say, dumb it down. Water seeps to its own level. You have conversations with people. Uh, I'm going to get into a little bit of that later on in this bill, because as a business owner, you got to decide what type of lifestyle you want and what type of stick you want to carry around. I like a big stick, and I like to walk lightly. The average person will walk right by me and have no idea who I am, and that's exactly how I like it. As long as I got the power, I could care less what it looked like. Most people out here look apart and they have no power, no say so. I learned this from Napoleon Hill and the other mentors that I have as well. But this book, Think and Grow Rich, just focus on the first word. When I say business is an intellectual sport, the first word on this book is think. So if you're thinking about going into business, you think about growing whatever it is you're doing, you got to have thinking time. I call it going in the lab. You have to strategize. You have to plan. You have to be strategic. You have to have time horizons. When goals get completed and you get from point A to point B, it's time to write a new list of where you're trying to go. Whatever's not on that list does not matter. It's a way of life. It's not for everybody. Welcome to the world of entrepreneurship. If you don't make the list of things to do or goals, you're irrelevant. You don't matter. Let's go to the next one. Tom Stanley. This gentleman right here, the book in his hand he has right now was Richer Than a Millionaire. I've also got introduced to him through Dave Ramsey. You can see most of my idols come from Dave Ramsey. His most famous book is The Millionaire Next Door. I'm going to be citing to that book today as well. That book, it's got so many gems in it that I can't wait to build on it and share with people how you recalibrate or calibrate your mind before you go into business or when you get ready to grow your business. What's your mindset? There's no right or wrong to do it. That's the beauty of ownership. You can get in bed with the bank. You can go to family and friends and raise money, or you can build it off operating cash. There's no right or wrong way to do it. But if you want to have 100% say so over what you got going on, build it off operating cash. Salute to Tom Staley and The Millionaire Next Door. This brings me to my last idol, mentor, and master teacher. And I'm going to go ahead and go on a limb and say that I want to get him on this channel. I'm going to do my part to have my master teacher come on this channel and talk business and finance and numbers and growing an operation. This is the best book that Keith Cunningham has ever produced, in my personal opinion. Nobody ever talks about this book when they interview him. They always talk about The Road Less Stupid or Keys to the Vault. Nobody talks about this book. I've been working this book since 2019, and there are some things in there that I will touch on as we continue to build. It won't be this video, it'll be the next video. But definitely salute to Keith Cunningham. If you've never heard of him, he is the real rich dad in the Rich Dad Poor Dad series. So I bumped into him by accident on YouTube. When I'm doing my numbers or, reconciling whatever I have to do in my business, I like to listen to my financial gurus. And in that particular time, I was listening to Robert Kiyosaki, and what popped up in my thread was Keith Cunningham. And when I clicked on Keith Cunningham, he just took me to a whole nother level with the way he thinks. He's from Texas, so he's down south like myself. He has a saying where he eats his own cooking. So that's right in line with Dave Ramsey and everybody that I idol. I don't idol or try to pattern myself off people who don't eat their own cooking. We're just not the same. It is what it is. So I want to salute to everybody that I've gave a shout out to get me to a place of making payroll, running my own payroll internally, hiring people, firing people. I'm gonna get into all of that. I'm gonna get into the engineering of it, the science of it, But this video right here is paying homage to those who got me to where I am. Now what I want to do is I want to transfer over to some literature to back up what I've said thus far. If you don't have a library and you're a business owner, that's a little suspect. That's a little suspect. I want to go here, which is Robert Kiyosaki on his quadrants. This doesn't come out of the Rich Dad Poor Dad book. This comes out this a separate book, or you can buy it all together. I did both. I bought it all in one book, and I bought this book separate. But the cash flow quadrant is self-explanatory. The worst financial category to be in is an employee. That means you have little to no intellect financially. That's just what it is. Let Robert Kiyosaki tell it. Everybody can't handle the truth. That's another thing about being a business owner. You got to be able to deal with the truth. So we can see employee is the worst financial bracket to be in because you get taxed before your money comes in. You don't have a right. You can't play the write-off game. Self-employed would be a step up above employee, right? You do get a chance to play the write-off game, and you do generate your money and then pay taxes at the end of the year or the following year. So it's a completely 180 from how you've been used to managing money. And then you have the business owner, which from my experience, you will go back and forth between self-employed and small business owner. If you're self-employed and then you hire somebody, what happens when you fire them? You go right back to self-employed. So this, from my personal experience, this is the hardest place to grow through, is going from self-employed to small business owner. Because now you're not betting on yourself. Now you're betting on other people in order to create. Now you're betting on other assets to kick off enough operating cash so that they can pay for themselves and pay for all the necessary expenses that come with them. It's a completely different game when you start talking about hiring people, looking at human resources, looking at who can you capitalize off of. Then we got the investor. As a self-employed person, you are all of those people depending on the situation that you're in. If you're running your service calls, or if you're doing whatever operations that you have, you're operating as an employee or the technician, right? When you're reconciling your numbers on whatever day of the week, or hopefully you reconcile your numbers, now you got your business owner hat on. When you go out, buy company vehicles, invest in company uniforms, company phones, you got your investor hat on. So you have to be able to flow through all these. You have to wear different hats, is what the E-Myth book calls it. Robert Kiyosaki likes to talk about the different, he breaks it down: employee, business owner, self-employed, investor. But if you think about what I just shared with you, the business owner, you put on different hats and you have to be a chameleon. It just depends on what's needed from you and what you're trying to get done. So with that being said, I'm going to go right into, since I mentioned E-Myth, that's going to be the first book that I'm going to cite to. And again, starting in business, October 15th, 2009. Here we are, September 17th, 2024. So we're talking about when October 15th comes around in the year 2024, we're talking about 15 years in business. No borrowing, no begging, no bumming from nobody. I'm just showing how I got here. It's more intellectual than it is anything else. And I just want to debunk a lot of myths that people may have. So the E-Myth, this was the first book that I got from one of my business mentors. It was a gift given to me. And you never outgrow these books that I'm going to be citing to you. All, as you grow and as you evolve, different stuff is going to make more sense to you. But I want to point out something here in the E-Myth. And what I want to show you is the odds that you're going to go into if you want to be in business. This is why literature is so important. You got to get it. You got to do the download first and then make an intellectual, educated decision on what you want to do. So it says right here, statistics tell us that by the end of the first year, at least 40% of them will be out of business. So out of 10 people that go down and get business licenses and get their business cards and start going to useless functions, 6 of them will go out of business in the first year. The reason why this is important, and I'm citing to this first, is because you have to be different to do something that the failure or the chance of failure is great. Who wants to do that? Who wants to fail? Who wants to walk into something knowing that there's a greater chance of failure than it is success? It's only 20% of the people in society. 2 out of 10 people think like that. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. I would not trade it for the world. Living 2 lives in one, being a part of the 80% up until 27, 30 years old, transforming over to the 20%. I can look at the 80%. I understand it. But the only thing that's separating the 80% from the 20% is studying to show yourself approved and discipline. Just that simple. Let's go down here. Within 5 years, more than 80% of them, 800,000 will fail. So if you can make it out that first year, if you're that 4 out of 10 that can get out that first year, by the time you get to 5 years, only 2 of y'all out of 10 will make it. So I just want you to see what you're getting into and what you're up against. And the rest of the bad news is if you own a small business that has managed to survive for 5 years or more, don't breathe a sigh of relief because more than 80% of small businesses that survive the first 5 years fail in the second 5. All right. So once again, from 5 to 10, only 2 gonna make it. Only 2 gonna make it. And how do you stay in business? You avoid going bankrupt. We're going back to money. It's an intellectual sport. It's all about finance. All right. And again, if you don't have this book, E-Myth, invest in this book. I want to use my words carefully. Invest. I don't have expenses. I have investments. As a business owner, anything that cash flow goes out of my bank account to, it has to be working for me. If it's not working for me, I don't need it. That's a different mindset. But when you play in the game, look at the odds of failure. So you take the word expense out, and I want to shout out Keith Cunningham. Keith Cunningham is the one that introduced me to that. Business owners don't have expenses. We have investments. Everything that we quote unquote spend money on, it better bring a return. If it doesn't bring a return, you're useless. Let's go down here. We're going to go over to page 5 now. And I want to pull out a little bit of information on page 5. At the top of this page, it says, and we're still in the E-Myth Revisited. This book is about such an idea that says your business is nothing more than a distinct reflection of who you are. And so I shared years ago, early on this channel, that money is a behavior thing. One of the things you learn as you live and you go through society, a lot of people can talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. And it's easy to determine people that don't walk the walk when you're walking the walk. So what does this look like? Your business is a reflection of you. It's one of the best self-help programs that I've ever been in my life, because if sales are down, if I'm not saving what I want to save in a particular quarter, I got nobody to blame but who? Me. So you're always looking at yourself. You're always doing inventory. You're always, if you're trying to build something, if you're trying to get from point A to point B, don't get lackadaisical. Don't get caught up with the 80% doing, right? Because they'll pull you down. You got to stay in your lane, and you got to make sure that you're doing what you need to do. And you got to always be willing to cut the fat. Get rid of the people from around you that's draining energy, that's not helping you build. You got to be able to walk away. Same thing in your respective industry. You can look at people, look at their reviews. You know, do customers complain about them not making their windows or appointments, if you will? That's a reflection of the business owner. That means he's unorganized or she's unorganized. So this stuck out to me that I wanted to share with people on page 5 of the E-Myth. Your business is only a reflection of you. If you're part distributors, or if you got distributors that have to ship your product out, You want your customers to be mesmerized. Like, wow, you said 5 business days. It came the next day. Well, behind the scenes, that's because the part distributor knows the money good, right? But if it takes weeks to get parts and things like that, how do your employees come in customers' houses? Are they in uniform? Everything is a reflection of you. So the more disciplined you are, the more smooth your ship will sail. Vice versa. The less discipline you have, the more your business will be all over the place. And you can sense that when you're dealing with different businesses, when you're out in society, you can tell if an operation is running smoothly or not. And then you have to make that decision whether you want to spend money with them or not. So I'm going to keep flowing through and I'm going to go to a different book. I'm going to go to The Millionaire Next Door. And The Millionaire Next Door is another book that every person who wants to be a business owner should have in his library, because what it does is it conditioned my mind. So what I figured out while working the Dave Ramsey program, trying to get back to zero with my net worth, right? I don't want to get too technical with a balance sheet, but basically if you have no assets, which is where I was when I enrolled in Dave Ramsey, and I had liabilities. So I had more liabilities than I had assets. So I had a negative net worth. That wasn't rocket science to me. So once I understood that I had a negative net worth, I sat my behind down. There was no reason for me to be out doing anything. I got the assignment. I understood the assignment. But let's go ahead and get into page 3. And let's look at people that actually want to build wealth. Let's look at what they do, because this is how I calibrated myself early in the game to understand that this is how I have to live if I want wealth and power. 7 factors. Who becomes wealthy? Usually the wealthy individual is a businessman who has lived in the same town for all of his adult life. This person owns a small factory, a chain of stores, or a service company. He has married once and remains married. He lives next door to people with a fraction of his wealth. He is a compulsive saver and investor, and he has made his money on his own. 80% of Americans' millionaires are first generation rich. Affluent people typically follow a lifestyle conducive to accumulating money. In the course of our investigations, we discovered 7 common denominators among those who successfully build wealth. So here we go. What's rule number 1? Live below your means. Salute to Dave Ramsey. He was the first one to introduce me to that. By the time I got to Tom Staley's The Millionaire Next Door, I had already heard that, and I'm like, okay, I'm on the right path. There's a reason why Dave Ramsey always talks about Tom Staley. Birds of a feather flock together. Second step, they allocate their time, energy, and money efficiently in ways conducive to building wealth. This is critical because you're doing something right when the 80% that's around you, they start asking you questions like, what do you do? Do you ever go out? When you start hearing that, if you're on this journey to building a business, you're on the right path. Because remember, you don't want to be like the 80% because they ain't got nothing. They broke. Especially people who look like me. They got this word going around called the culture. So you got to think, I'm 27, 30 years old, and I'm making a change in order to go into something that's got an 80% chance of failure. One of the hardest things for me in my 20s and right at 30 was walking away from the culture, the partying, the hanging out, the doing this and that. So how did I get through Friday and Saturday nights? I read literature. I got a notebook. I got my highlighter, and I started feeding my mind. Ain't nothing out there. Ain't nothing out there. Just a bunch of people with negative net worth. I'm trying to build something. So step 2, if you can't do this, if you don't have the discipline to sit down and properly allocate your time, it's going to be hard for you to get in this game. Let's look at the 3rd step. They believe that financial independence is more important than displaying high social status. I just kind of tied into that with the culture, right? Especially of my group of people, right? It's all party, club, music, that gets you nowhere in life, right? But then as you evolve and you accumulate, you see how I'm doing this video. I'm just in a white workout t-shirt. I could care less what people think when I'm in society of how I dress. I do what I want to do. Why? Because I know I'm winning. So I don't have to fake it to make it. I don't have to fake the funk. So I'm showing you in black and white where I get this from. I only listen to people who are where I'm trying to go. That's another thing as a business owner. You need mentors around you so you can start talking numbers. Because when you start talking numbers with normal people, it's above their head. They've never seen it, never touched it, don't know what to do with it if they got it. So they believe that financial independence is more important than displaying a high social status. That's me 100%. Care less what you driving in. I can care less what you got on. I'm more concerned with doing whatever it is that I want to do, when I want to do it, how I want to do it, wherever I want to do it. Their parents did not provide economic outpatient care. That's me as well. Matter of fact, when I started talking about wealth and being debt free, and I'm taking Dave Ramsey class, my mom and dad both looked at me like I was crazy. They were telling me things like, you got to have a credit score and this, that, and the third. So I knew then, okay, I'm about to be the black sheep because I'm about to do something that is foreign in my family. But over time, I'm a living witness. Over time, you will be able to give like no one else if you live like no one else starting out. Their adult children are economically self-sufficient. My son's in the 12th grade of high school, so that's yet to be seen. So that one doesn't apply to me right now. They are proficient in targeting market opportunities. That comes with conditioning your mind and reading the literature that I'm going to be referring to and the idols that I'm referring to on this page. As you recalibrate your mind, you start thinking different and you start seeing things that other people don't see. You see money with your mind, not your eyes. You see money with your mind, not your eyes. What do I mean by that? Most people see a BMW pull up and they think money. It's actually a liability if it's not paid off. But if you can see something in your mind and make it come real and capitalize off of it, you're part of the 20%. They chose the right occupation. That's another thing. I didn't go to school for appliance repair. I went to school for electronics technology. So this is part of the business as an intellectual sport. I had to look and find what's an industry that's recession proof. Uh, in the electronic field, what am I going to do? Repair your TV? You know, I mean, I just couldn't think of a lot of things I could do in my field per se, but that's the beauty of knowledge. Had I just stopped at what I went to school for, then I would still be in that industry probably as an employee, but I was able to choose the right occupation uh, to go into business with. You got to have the machines that run your house. There's no way around it. So we're going to get into the next part of this, which will be going to go to page 13. And I hope you got your pad and that you're taking notes so that you can, either invest in these books or if you have the books, go to these pages and kind of digest and sit in the information. So page 13 is important because in the Millionaire Next Door, it has how to determine if you're wealthy. And it has the formula right here. Multiply your age times your realized pre-tax annual household income from all sources except inheritance. Divide by 10. This, less any inherited wealth, is what your net worth should be. And so that's something that you can do on your own time. Money is personal. Unless you're talking with mentors or your business network, you'll have these kind of conversations if they're in the wealth game. A lot of people are in the wealth game. A lot of people are in the credit score game or the debt game. Again, there's no right or wrong to it. You can do what you want to do. Again, we're only talking about people that's trying to build operating cash. So we're going to go ahead and go to page 28 of the Millionaire Next Door. And I want to cite to this section on page 28 where it says, it is unfortunate that some people judge others by their choice in foods, beverages, suits, watches, motor vehicles, and such. To them, superior people have excellent taste in consumer goods, but it is easier to purchase products that denote superiority than to be actually superior in economic achievement. Did you get that? I learned that from this literature and I realized that's the game. 80% of the people want to look like something based on their car, their watch, where you go eat at. What happens when you can emotionally mature and intellectually mature past what you look like, and you're more concerned with when you walk in the bank that the branch manager and every teller in there know you? What's more important? So you're not getting it from me. I'm pointing out in the literature, if you want to be on this road to wealth, you got to do different than what the culture dictates or society as a whole dictates. You got to be willing to be different. You got to be willing to be different. Allocating time and money in the pursuit of looking superior often has a predictable outcome: inferior economic achievement. You look good, she ain't working with nothing. Got a nice car, she ain't working with nothing. You got a big house, you ain't working with nothing. You stay fresh with your wardrobe, working with nothing. It's a choice. Everybody has a choice. So I'm going to go over here and I am going to go to page 8. We're still in The Millionaire Next Door, written by Tom Stanley. Now we're going to get into Big Hat, No Cattle. I've heard Keith Cunningham mention this a lot as well. Keith Cunningham, like I said before, coming out of Texas. Let's get into this. We first heard this expression from a 35-year-old Texan. He owned a very successful business that rebuilt large diesel engines, but he drove a 10-year-old car and wore jeans and a buckskin shirt. He lived in a modest home in a lower middle class area. His neighbors were postal clerks, firemen, and mechanics. After he substantiated his financial success with actual numbers, this Texan told us, my business does not look pretty. I don't play the part, don't act it. When my British partners first met me, they thought I was one of our truck drivers. They looked all over my office, looked at everyone but me. Then the senior guy of the group said, oh, we forgot we were in Texas. I don't own big hats, but I have a lot of cattle. And again, getting introduced to this information in my late 20s, and by the time I'm in my early 30s, just sparks were flying off my head. Like, this is the complete opposite of what my people do. I can't speak for other groups of people, but this is the complete opposite. And I embrace this lifestyle to this day. I actually get a kick out of dumbing myself down and just acting, I get a kick out of it now because I know what I'm working with. I like to just be around other people and listen to them lie and fake the funk. So this is where I'm getting this information from again. I want to sleep good at night. If I owe a lot of people, which means I lose leverage and I lose power, I know how that felt when I was in my 20s. I don't want that feeling again. So as of now, we went through E-Myth and I introduced you to The Millionaire Next Door. I'm going to jump into my next literature, which is going to be Robert Kiyosaki. And right now, we've got 3 books that you should have in your library. You should have the E-Myth Revisited. You should have The Millionaire Next Door by Tom Stanley. And you should have Robert Kiyosaki, How to Increase My Financial IQ. I'm not going to come out of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I'm going to come out of How to Increase Your Financial IQ so that we can get a good idea of how all these people are saying the same thing when it comes to finance. And so the first part that I want to get to While taking Dave Ramsey class, Dave Ramsey always talked about having a year emergency fund. Now, at the time, I had no emergency fund. And then by the time I got the 90 days emergency fund, I was like, a year? But something about that year, it intrigued me. And I was like, you know what? If Dave could do it, I could do it. And in my journey of reading Robert Kiyosaki's books, after Rich Dad Poor Dad, after the cash flow quadrants, then I bump into Increase Your Financial IQ. And we're going to look at the bottom of page 83. And what does he say under savings? We save money until we had over a year's expenses in cash. So we got Dave Ramsey talking about a 12-month emergency fund. Robert Kiyosaki is talking about a 12-month emergency fund. Keith Cunningham's talking about a 12-month emergency fund. So I said, if they could do it, I could do it. And your life changes when you cannot generate income for an entire year and you still good. Who would you be? What would you be doing? What kind of emergencies would turn into minor inconveniences because you sitting on the 12-month emergency fund? Again, I'm always going to be a part of the 20%. I love the challenges of doing the hard work. You already winning if you just got a 90-day emergency fund. But if the big boys saying they go for 12 months, then I'm going for 12 months. And it changes your whole dynamic with your business because it gives you thinking time. Money equals time. When you get past a 90-day or a 6 months emergency fund, when you start looking at your money in year increments, now you got time. Now you can create things, whatever it is, whether it be literature. I don't even want to get into how much I've given since I've put myself in a financial situation where I can be about my business like I don't have anything, but if push come to shove and I got a project that I want to work on, I know I can sit down and I ain't got no pressure. Let's go to the next one, which is going to be page 84 of how to increase your financial IQ. And we want to get into this information. And all of this, it took years to get here. Years. So I don't want to give anybody the false idea that this happens overnight. If you're trying to recreate yourself financially, you got to give time. And you got to say no to a lot of things. Again, if it didn't make your goal list, it's not important. Where are we at on here? Bear with me 1 second. Here we go. Right where my cursor is. It says, as I stated at the start of this book, if you don't solve a problem, you will have that problem all your life. Problems rarely solve themselves. This is why we decide to pay ourselves first early in life, even though we came up short. Coming up short forced us to solve problems of not enough money. That's a different mindset. When you know something is due, and before you give to a different entity, you pay yourself first. Remember, I got the video, pay yourself first. That's how you walk off the job. You pay yourself first. If your light bill, you just have to be 15 days late on your light bill. But I'm not going to work 40 hours. It starts, remember, your business is a reflection of you. So you learn this while you're an employee. I'm not working 40 hours a week and I'm not paying myself first. If you don't pay yourself first, you're a slave. You can never become a free man until you learn to pay yourself first. Now, what does that do? Now you short. Now, instead of watching a football game or whatever your hobby is on the weekend, now you got to get up and go do some overtime or go get you a part-time job or work on your part-time business. So it's a different mindset, but you always pay yourself first. You do not let a week or a month or a fiscal quarter go by and you have not paid yourself anything. What's going to happen when an emergency comes? Is that emergency going to be an emergency or is it going to be an inconvenience? So let's go to page 85. And we can see right here, we got an income statement. Some people call it a profit and loss, right? You got your income statement. In this example, Robert Kiyosaki is showing that you got a paycheck, which is earned income. Look at all the expenses: income tax, social security, 401k, home mortgage, car payments, credit card bills, food, clothing, gas, electricity. That's just the expenses. Now let's look at the balance sheet. The balance sheet is the most important thing to any human being or business. When you operate in the 5D, you look at everybody as a balance sheet. So let's look at this example of a balance sheet. What's on the liability side? In other words, money going out the back door: home mortgage, car payment, credit card debt, retirement fund. What's in the asset column? There's no emergency fund here. This example is somebody with a negative net worth. This is 8 out of 10 people in society. This is what their situation is. Now, they can fancy themselves and give themselves the illusion that it's something else, but as a business owner, it's an intellectual sport. The language of business is accounting. Salute to Keith Cunningham. When you look at the numbers, you have no assets and you have liabilities. You got a negative net worth. Why are you outside? So dumbing yourself down, when I say I'm dumbing myself down, you can't get this kind of knowledge from the books that I'm sharing with you as you try to grow and evolve as a business owner. You can't digest this information and not start looking at stuff from a 5D standpoint. So what do? Are you going to be that person that's going to educate everybody in the room, or when you're out hanging out with? No, you dumb yourself down. You listen, you learn, you observe, you watch, and you just be quiet, because everybody can't handle the truth. Because business owners, we have to do inventories and we have to deal with the truth. So this is a great example that I wanted to point out. And all of this information is necessary in order to go into business. The language of business is accounting. If you do not know what an income statement is, if you don't know what expenses are, if you don't know what a balance sheet is, if you don't know what a net worth is, then you'll be like the 80% out here. And the last one I'm going to go to is 86. And now here's a different financial statement from the one we just looked at. Let's look at what's different. Okay, the income on this income statement is not coming from a paycheck. The income's from business. Let's look at the expenses: tithing, savings, investing, taxes, mortgage, living expenses. Before you get to your living expenses, what do? You put a percentage up to give. Tithing doesn't have to be church. Tithing could be given to your family. Tithing could be given to the world on a YouTube channel. Tithing is tithing. Savings, paying yourself first. Investing, looking for opportunity. And like I said earlier, it could be uniforms, vehicles, whatever. Then we get the taxes. Then you deal with your mortgage and your living expenses. It's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle. Let's look at the asset side: business, investments, and liquid reserves. The liquid reserves would be your emergency fund. The investments could be your employees. You're a business owner. And then you got your actual business. But look at the key of how the winners play the game. What's on the liability side? Nothing. It's a different game and it's a different world. If you choose to listen to the people that I cited to in the beginning of this video, which have allowed me to evolve and become the person that I am today. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. I wouldn't trade. If I died today, I can say that, I didn't let certain energy stay in me while living on earth. That's one of my biggest goals, is no regret. I'm glad that I took the chance to invest in myself and all the different organizations that I'm a part of and the different people that I know on the personal side that always, not always, but periodically had things to say, like, when you gonna come get active and do some service work, or, why you don't do this, why you don't do that. You need all of that as confirmation to say, I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing the right thing. As soon as I slow down, I go back to the 80%. I'm not where I want to be. I want to be in this 20%. I don't want to be in the 80%. So I'm going to go to Walmart. I'm going to buy t-shirts. I'm going to look like everyday people when I'm in society. I'm not gonna get the new car, which is going to build on my liability side. I'm not going to go get the big house and add on my liability side. I'm trying to build something. So I need what? To live below my means. I need them expenses as low to the ground as possible so I can weather a bad month, a bad quarter, or a bad year. With that being said, we're just going to read this little portion right here. Remember this, your asset column is your column. If you do not pay yourself first, no one else will. So basically, there's a lot of financial slaves out here in society because you're generating money, but you don't pay yourself first. The asset column is your column. That's supposed to be the most important column. So we suffer from lack of knowledge, lack of studying to show ourselves approved. I'm going to go to the last page in this bill. And again, this is just paying homage to the people who got me to the place of being able to hire and fire people. And like I said earlier, it is one of the hardest things that I've ever done in business because now you have to bet on other people. And one of my mentors tells me, you'll never find another you. And I disagree with that. I disagree with that. Keith Cunningham always talks about A players. A players are out there. You just have to learn from your hiring mistakes. That's all you can do. But you can't put yourself in a position to hire unless you got financial resources. So none of what I'm talking about could be a reality for me if I didn't do everything that I'm showing you now. And I'm looking for this last page that I wanted to cite to, and I took my time to do my due diligence, and it looks like I do not have it in here, which is not good because that's going against my plan. Nope, I don't have it in here. So what I'm going to do, I will add that to the next bill. I'm going to start cranking these out on a more consistent basis. It'll probably be on a weekly basis because I got a lot of content, a lot of information that I want to share with people. So hopefully you had a pen and paper and you could write down everything that I've been telling you, but everything on this video is about business as an intellectual sport. Before you get to hiring employees, there's certain information that I had to have in my library because what happens is in my particular industry, when I'm talking with people about how do you put yourself in a position to hire people, that's another thing, scouting people in your industry. When I would ask these questions, I would just take notes of what everybody would say. And everybody pretty much had the same complaints. Man, it's hard to get people to come to work for you. You know, they want to make X amount of money without necessary experience. And so you have to take all that information in, and then you still have to be willing to try. And so it took years of me going to seminars, going to classes, whether it be in my industry or just on the financial side, talking to people in my industry, taking notes of what everybody was saying, looking at nobody has nothing positive to say about hiring people. So I chose to first get right mentally, learn the new information first, and then start applying it in my life. And so it's a way of life for me. For the rest of my days, that's how I'm going to operate. I'm always going to try to put myself in the 20%. I could care less what the 80% are doing. That's not my world anymore. It hadn't been my world since 2009. Hopefully this motivates you to study to show yourself approved. The same way you got to study the literature in whatever industry you're doing, whatever it is that you got to, whatever it is you're fixing, if you're in the service industry or whatever you're doing. When it comes to money and it comes to business and growing your operation, I strongly suggest take the necessary classes, invest in the necessary literature, shut it down on Friday, Saturday nights, even if you got to do it for years. I've done this for years. because I always had a bigger goal in mind. I always had a bigger goal in mind. So Friday, Saturday night didn't mean anything to me. I was always going to find inexpensive ways to have fun. There's nothing less inexpensive than investing in a book. That book will probably last you 30 days, cost less than $30. How much money are you spending on 4 weekends within a month if you bought a book? So you can get through a year, and then your vocabulary starts to change, your mentality starts to change. You start looking at people in society and you start realizing who looks like they really got it. And then you can also see when certain people pull up peacocking or looking like it, you can see them from a mile away, like they is, but they not. So salute again. City Boys are Russ Appliance Repair. You can see it in the back. I will be dropping content on a consistent basis. If you learn something from this, I don't beg, borrow, and bum. But if you choose to invest into the channel, there is a Cash App attached to the channel. I do have a goal that I want to get Keith Cunningham on this channel. It's probably going it's probably going to be an investment involved. I'm probably going to have to pay an expense to get him on here. But if you want to see Keith Cunningham on this channel or you like this information that I'm dropping, go ahead and support the channel. And I will be back to cite to some more literature before we really get into the nuts and bolts of how you hire an employee. I really want to drill down and give everybody a good shout out that got me to the point of hiring and firing. And I also want to stress the fact that business is an intellectual sport. It's a thinking man's game. Leave your emotions at the door when it's time to talk money. Salute, I'm out.